everyone and welcome to a new video. So it's holiday season and I thought it would be fun to do one last big project before the year ends. I've been seeing a lot of concept art for the series A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I really fell in love with the Starfall dress, so that's what's really inspired my design. I wanted it to be a classic fitted bodice ending at the natural waistline and then extending into a long pleated skirt. I knew that I wanted to have long sleeves that would shimmer in the dark, and so I came up with this idea of having a diamond pattern along the arms. So for this project, I'm extremely grateful that Lumi Sonata wanted to collaborate with me. So they specialise in fibre optic fabric, which lights up and is honestly the perfect fabric for this project. So how it works is that the fabric has tiny fibre optics which are woven into it just millimetres apart in a parallel fashion. At the end of the fabric, the fibre optics are then grouped into these black connection points. Powered by a small battery pack, the LED lights are then plugged into the connection points to light up the fabric. And when you cut the fabric, you are essentially breaking the fibre optic, and everything after that cut will turn dark. So it's very important to think carefully about how you're going to cut the fabric for your project. I found that cutting the fabric into rectangles was easiest, and then shaping it to my body using pleats, darts and folds. I got my fabric in the white colour and I got 10 metres of it. However, if you want to make this dress, you probably would only need 7 to 8 metres of fabric, depending on your size. I got 5 battery packs along with my fabric, but I only used 3 of the battery packs when I actually wore this dress. The battery packs last between 2 to 12 hours, depending on the different LED qualities and flash modes that you use, and they also come with USB-C port chargers to easily charge them. I just charged my battery packs through my laptop and that worked fine. For the understructure bodice, I based it on my live-action Aurora wedding dress pattern and adapted it so it would suit the type of bodice structure that I wanted for this particular dress. So for this one, I wanted it to have a horizontal waistline and also a horizontal neckline, if you will. I used 2 layers of cotton broadcloth fabric to make this understructure bodice, and I used cable ties as boning at the centre front, the 2 side darts, as well as the centre back. Because it's a front closing bodice, I initially wanted it to have hooks and thread bars, except I didn't get around to doing this, and instead I just used safety pins to hold it closed, and that worked really well, and it does mean that it can be adjustable. The top and bottom edges of the base bodice are finished with bias binding. The base bodice was then used as a guide to cut out the Lumi Sonata fabric. So I placed the base bodice on top of the Lumi Sonata fabric while it was lit up, and I found that this really helped with visualizing where I should cut and making sure that I wasn't going to cut into the fabric and make it go dark and ruin my design. So basically I cut a large rectangle, approximately double the height of the base bodice. This was then placed onto the base fabric on my mannequin, and I had the black connection points just below the natural waistline hanging downwards. The fibre optic fabric was then folded from the top, so it was pinned at the top along the neckline, if you will, and then folded down, slit again at the bottom where it needed ease, and then folded back upwards. And then I formed those pleats along the waistline, and that then formed the ruffly shapes along the neckline. So that's what I did for the bodice. It's very simple, and all of the pleating along the front I think really helps with drawing a little bit more attention and interest there. And this center front closure, that was really easily hidden with those pleats and that visual interest there. Moving on to the skirt, a waistband was cut from cotton broadcloth fabric. Once the waistbands were assembled, I was then able to move on to the Lumi Sonata fabric, and from the Lumi Sonata fabric I cut out 10 black connection points worth of fabric, and that would be for one side of the skirt. So I had, along the length of the fabric, 10 connection points, and that was one side of the skirt, and I cut another length of 10 connection points, and that would be the other side of the skirt. So these two large rectangles were then pleated down to the waistband, and I used a combination of very deep, just deep normal pleats, as well as box pleats where I really needed a lot of the bulk of the fabric to be hidden away. The two halves of the skirt were then sewn together down one seam, and I also sewed the waistband at the top of that. Now you should have one giant rectangle which has been pleated down. I folded the two other raw edges in on themselves, and these folded edges would form the front for the slit of the skirt. And these folded edges were hand sewn down along the top where the cotton broadcloth waistband is, with a slip stitch. Cotton ties were then added along the back of the skirt to tie around the waist over the bodice, and two ties were also added to the front of the skirt, and then these would tie to the back. So the ties help with making sure it's adjustable for different waist measurements. Moving on to the arm and leg sleeves, I cut a long rectangle of fabric for one connection point worth, and for that one rectangle of fabric, strips of fabric every 10 fiber optics were cut. So I had to count individual fiber optics, so every 10 I would then make a cut and slit that up the fabric. The raw edges were then folded inwards on themselves and sewn down for durability, and that really helps with encasing those raw edges and making sure that they're not going to fray everywhere. This also provides these strips of fabric with more structure and support and rigidity, so they're not as flimsy as they were before. Along each of the strips, I marked every 2 inches with chalk, and these points were then sewn together to form an expanding diamond shape pattern. I just machine stitched these, and I made sure to go back and forth along each of the stitches to make sure that they were extra secure. I then put these around my arms and my leg to find out where it needs to be sewn to form that tube shape. I didn't sew the whole thing into a tube, just various points, because I do need to account for the fact that I need to move my knee and also move my elbow. I'll now talk about how I wear the dress and how I put all of those components together. So I start with a singlet and some gym shorts, and then over the top of that a corset is worn, and that's going to provide that base foundation for the bodice to then sit over. So the corset is from my live action Aurora wedding dress cosplay, and the making of that is linked above in the cards. The corset is important for 2 reasons. It provides a smooth foundation for the bodice to go over, since the bodice is only lightly boned with cable ties, but it also helps with holding up the weight of the skirt. Without a corset, the skirt waistband would dig into the skin at the waist and not be very comfortable. Before we move on to any of the actual dress components, I put on the leg thing first, and this fits over my right leg and secures in the back with cotton ties. The bodice is worn over the top of the corset. I was originally going to put hooks and thread bars down the center closure, but I got lazy and just used safety pins instead. I think I will leave it this way because with safety pins it makes much more adjustable to fit the wearer. The sleeves slip over my arms and have a little ribbon loop at the ends to put over my middle fingers. The sleeves plug into 2 connection points which are located at the back of my bodice. The skirt fits over the top of the lower bodice at the waist. There are cotton ties to secure the back, and then likewise for the front. I used 3 battery packs for this dress, 1 for the bodice, sleeves and the leg thing, and then 2 battery packs for the skirt. All of the battery packs are simply put into the strong elastic waistband of my gym shorts, but if you have a skirt or shorts with pockets, that would be even better. When the fabric is lit up, it is absolutely stunning. You can choose from different light settings with a range of colours, and there is also a mobile app which you can download for Apple or Android devices, and that allows you to control the lights via Bluetooth. And that's really cool, but what's even cooler is that you can fully customize the colours to your preferences, the patterns of how the colours transition, and even set your lights to music. I haven't tried out any of these features, but it's definitely worth looking into if you've got a cosplay or another creative project that requires these customizations. So that is the final dress. It looks really, really great in the dark. And overall, I really enjoyed working with this fiber optic fabric. While it was challenging and sometimes a bit of a puzzle at times, it was loads of fun and really drew out the creativity in me. If you'd like to purchase some of this fabric for your own light up project, please use the discount code EstelleCosplay for 10% off your order. Thank you so much to Lumi Sonata for the collaboration. This project was truly magical. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below which character you think would wear this dress. Also, if you would like to see more of my work, please follow me on Instagram at EstelCosplay. I'm a lot more active over there. So until next time, stay creative.